Hey everybody, welcome to Live from the View. It is Thursday night once again, 7 p.m. We're really glad that you're here and joining us here in Bell Vegas. I wanted to just kind of let you know that this is the Live from the View program, which is presented to you by the Community Arts of Bellevue. As most of you know, Community Arts of Bellevue is a 501c3 local organization that was created with a mission statement to create, promote, educate, and uplift the arts and the culture of the Bellevue and West Nashville area. And we're certainly going to do that tonight. We're going to do all of that here tonight. CAB is also a volunteer-run organization that does not have paid staff. We're all here just for the fun of it, and because it's just a good mission. You can also become a member of Community Arts of Bellevue by going to our website called caofb.org. And Matt, if you can, when you get a chance, you can put that up on the screen. Community Arts of Bellevue, so it's caofb.org, and click on memberships. And there you can also click to become a member of CAB and support the work that we do out here in Bellevue. We're also looking for folks to be volunteers who would like to be a part of this organization. There's always things to do. There's we're about the performing arts, we're about visual arts, we're about culinary arts, we're about writing and literature arts. You name it, we're here to do it. Dance, on stage, backstage, front stage, off stage, whatever we want to do. If you feel like you'd like to be involved in this organization, you can also let us know through our website. Just to let you know, to get involved, one of the things right now is that we are having auditions this Sunday afternoon, July the 18th, for a production that we're doing on September the 11th called Their Stars Still Shine, which is a locally written and produced play that has been written specifically for the 9/11 memorial that's happening in Bellevue this fall. This is the 20th anniversary of 9/11, so this is all to commemorate the 20th anniversary. Again, it's going to be Sunday, 3 to 5 at the Bellevue Performing Arts Center, which is located on Old Harding Road. It's behind where Antonio's used to be. It's in that strip center. Players is also in that strip center. So at the very end of that center, you'll find the Bellevue Performing Arts, and we would love for you to try out for a play. We have parts for a child, and we also have other parts that can be any age and any gender. So, and if you can sing, all the better. If you play an instrument, bring it on. So there is a lot of stuff there. And also, if you just want to be behind the scenes on working with this production as we make history with it, you're welcome, and we welcome you to be a part of that as well. All right, so let's get on with what we're really here to be with tonight. So I want to let you know that I think this is probably going to be one of those shows that you're like, I was really just curious. This is Relentlessly Curious, and this is the place for that. So tonight we are at the Bellevue Tattoo Emporium. Our host with us this evening is going to be Mr. Tom Chisholm, and we're going to talk about the history and the art of the tattoo. And I'm going to kind of give you a quick pan around so you can see. Well, I kind of got cameras going the wrong way. We're in a really great, cool place, man. This is it. So I want to welcome with us this evening, Tom. And Tom, welcome. I'm really glad to have you with us tonight.
Thank you for coming.
I'm going to flip around. I'm also going to work my camera. Give me just a moment, folks. While I flip my camera around. Should have done this beforehand. But you know, do what you can when you can, wherever how you can. Now we got it going on. So we are cooking with gas. Tom,
yeah.
Again, thanks for being with us. And I am all excited about being in your shop tonight. So let's start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about how you got to be a tattoo artist.
Well, personally for myself, I'm from Florida. I was born and raised in Florida. Now you know why you never run into Floridians down there, because most of us are smart enough to get out.
All right.
But anyhow, yeah, about 20 years ago, my brother, I actually kind of got talked into it. I was living in Colorado at the time, and this is back during an era where this was the mid to late 90s, and as we were going in, tattooing isn't really quite where it is today. It was just barely breaking into what it is today. So my brother had happened to have a shop in Orlando, and he had asked. He was starting up his second shop, I believe it was third shop at the time.
Wow.
Anyway, he was relatively young in his career, and he really needed somebody he could trust, and so he was trying to talk me into coming on being a tattoo artist. Well, I wasn't really down for that. I was really enjoying Colorado. For some reason, I kept putting him off for some reason. But I eventually had met who would eventually be my wife, and her name was Bonnie, and she was a body piercer at one of the more notable shops there in Colorado Springs, and she was from Florida as well, and had just moved to Florida. And I met her on a visit, and she was going back, but I really liked her, so I thought to myself, well, I can always go back to Florida, help my brother, learn how to tattoo and everything, and maybe I could talk to her. And so that's kind of what got me down there. And once I got into it and started tattooing, I mean, of course, now I look at it like I don't know what I was ever thinking, but I'm certainly glad I pursued that. And I'm really glad that my brother was so persistent.
So, for someone, if someone walked up to you today and say, "Okay, what is a tattoo artist, and what does a tattoo artist do?" How would you describe that?
Well, that's a very it's a double-sided well, it's a double-sided answer, I should say, because the industry itself as a whole has certain things that you'll find pretty consistent about it, and then there's a lot of things that make everyone absolutely totally different. So my perception of what makes me a tattoo artist, I guess, was that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. What makes me a tattoo artist? Well, um, I have been fortunate enough to be exposed to um, many professionals in the industry who have developed their own ways of doing it over like 15, 20 years at the time. And once you've been around the industry with enough professionals that will really actually show you genuine education and guidance, then you really tend to take on certain mannerisms, and not really habits, but more mannerisms and things that tend to stick with you over the years. And you really, it begins to morph into your own wisdom and knowledge. And that's eventually what makes you a tattoo artist, is what that process is like and what is your viewpoint on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm going to come back a little later and ask you about the process. I want to talk more about that.
Sure.
And dig into a little bit deeper. So tell me about your clients. Where do they usually come from? And
all right.
And tell me more about those.
That's pretty interesting. What I find really cool about that is that if you really aren't into tattoos much or whatever, you really typically probably wonder like who all would maybe come to a tattoo shop, and you would think it's maybe one particular group or another. And actually, it's a very diverse crowd. We get everybody from A to Z, from one end of the spectrum to the other. We have everybody from bankers and investors, and people that are into real estate, police officers. I just tattooed a gentleman who is he's in the basic training for the sheriff's department. He's a sheriff's officer, sheriff's deputy. And then you get everybody from, I even had a homeless guy come in here from under a bridge one day. It's one of our more popular stories that my friend Josh could tell you. But to make a long story short,
I'm sure there's a lot of those around here.
Yeah, but to make a long story short, he came in, and he was hot. It was a really hot summer day, and he said that his wife was just now expecting a baby. They lived under the bridge over there. I don't know which one. He didn't ever specify. But the bottom line was he wanted to get Lizzie, her name, tattooed on his arm, and he had $5 to his name. And my friend Josh at the time, who was just a client at the time, was like, "What are you gonna do, Tom?" And believe it or not, I have certain emotional, little soft spots. Believe it or not, for genuine kindness every now and then. And so this guy, I was like, $5 to this guy is everything this guy has got. You know what I mean? And I was like, you know what? I'll do it for $5 whole. You got to give me every $5. And he was 15 minutes early for his appointment. But that just goes to show like the full spectrum of people we have. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of great, interesting stories that happen around here. So I want to back up just a little bit. How does someone become a tattoo artist? Are there steps along the way? Are there levels? I did read where there's like apprentice.
Right.
You have to be an apprentice.
Right.
I don't know if there's a time period on that. So how does that all happen?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that. I have a question, because believe it or not, body piercers and tattoo artists both get asked this question. I can certainly speak for tattoo artists that really what you're asking for as an apprenticeship, a lot of people think is just like, oh, well, I guess I'll just go down to the community college and sign up for that class, and I'll graduate from that in about 6 weeks, and I'll be ready to go. And it's actually not like that at all. It's actually a very evolved process, very traditional process. In odd ways, it's almost like joining a fraternity house. I mean, you literally you have to go through an apprenticeship, and people say, "Oh, that makes sense. I've got to be trained so that I understand what I'm doing." And it's like, well, it's not just that you're being trained, and that you're taught what the traditions of the industry are that you're doing, the culture of what you're getting into, and you're also taught about the way that there are certain faux pas in the industry that you have to observe. It's like playing golf in a weird way. There's little rules, that aren't written rules, but they're rules nonetheless. And it's like anything else. And so the state of Tennessee, anyway, requires that you be an apprentice for whoever you're being with for 2 years. I believe that's what it is. Right. And if people don't generally understand what an apprenticeship is, I mean, apprenticeships literally start from, you could literally be doing, all of the like cleaning around the shop for maybe 3 or 4 months in a row. You don't get paid for it. You basically, it breaks down like this. You come to do it on your own time, and you have to have enough time available so that you can actually genuinely learn along the way. Otherwise, it's just wasting everybody's time. And one of the things that once you do get accepted, I will tell you, one of the things that'll end your apprenticeship very quickly is if you keep telling whatever tattoo artist has decided to accept your apprenticeship about what you know or how far along you believe you are, because you don't know yet, even though you believe you know. It's like being given like a chapter to a really interesting book, and you think you know the whole book, and there's a lot to it. So anyway, you have to go through all these steps. You learn everything from what makes the machines work the way that they do, how does that affect what you're going to do, how does it, it affects what machine you're going to use sometimes because you have to tune differently. Everything from what kind of designs you're going to tattoo, what kind of designs ethically fall within the range that you believe 100% you can accomplish, and what can you be realistic with yourself and understand that there are limitations you haven't exceeded. Okay. And so a tattoo artist's job is to teach you how to develop that understanding based on what you're knowing, and we're supposed to guide you in developing more wisdoms along the way so that you generally have a wisdom enough to do what you're doing. Because unfortunately, one of the reasons it takes so long is that there's things that are going to come up that you just don't remember that you need to know, but they're automatically things you know. And when you see the event happen, you go, this is a prime example of what we're talking about. You're like, in this situation, it's always remember you blah, 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 blah. And it could be X matter X, but it may not even come up. There's so many trivial things, but, and it may seem menial, the task that you're being asked to do. It's kind of like the Karate Kid, painting the fence with upstroke, downstroke, wax on, wax off. But just like the Karate Kid, there's a reason you're being shown that. You're being shown muscle and brain memory for things that are very important to do what you're asking to do, because you're asking to become part of a tradition that's gone back hundreds of years, and you're also being expected to perform at a level that won't embarrass the fact that once they're an independent professional, and the immediate question comes like, well, who apprenticed you? And your name is the one that comes out of their mouth. You better have taught them the right way, because the industry judges itself. It does self-police, contrary to a lot of what people think.
Interesting. And I think you said this. It takes about how long to do an apprenticeship?
In the state of Tennessee, they require that you stay a minimum of 2 years. And at that point, an artist can sign off if he believes that you fulfilled the education necessary to move on to be an independent operating tattoo artist.
Wow.
Right.
That's a very different way of doing this.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like I said,
right.
Community college, getting your, going through your coursework,
yeah,
very different.
Yeah, and everyone does it different. And also, my body piercer said something interesting when he first got here about an apprentice that he has, and it's a very, very wonderful adage to understand about apprenticeships. I mean, everyone learns at their own pace, and so if you say, well, how long is this going to take? Well, I don't know. That depends on you. And a lot of people think, well, I've got a good attitude. It's like, has nothing to do with your attitude. It has to do with the perception of the intuitive understanding for what it is that you're doing, so that they can become instinctual rather than something you have to think about.
Okay, great. Oh, wow, great. So once you get your license, then you're also you can apprentice other people.
You are legally you can legally be eligible to work as a tattoo artist.
Okay. At what level can you start
You,
having apprentices up under you?
I believe the state of Tennessee requires you to tattoo. For me, as a shop owner, for being from out of state, I was told I had to be I had to be here for 3 consecutive years, even though I've been doing this for 21 years. But
Okay.
in Tennessee, they want to show that you've shown consistent compliance with Tennessee specific regulations and their way of doing it.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
every state is different.
That makes sense. Interesting. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, where did tattoos even come from? What's the history behind it all?
Well, the history goes back literally as far as as humanity itself, because they just recently found some Egyptian bodies that were found, as well as the Andes man found up in the ice caps up in the Andes mountains over there, and as old as the guy was, he was one of the oldest human beings ever found. He had tattoos, and these other bodies that just recently found also had tattoos. So tattoos have gone back literally to the end of time, and they signify really, one of the cool things about tattooing is, even though designs may look the same, you could see 10 of the same design on 10 people, but those designs don't necessarily mean the exact same thing to any of those people that have them. They got them for various reasons, for different reasons or reflections of what they believe.
It's their own interpretation of whatever that design might be.
Right. Someone could have gotten Eeyore, for example, that I kid my ex-wife about a tattoo she used to get. But someone could have gotten that that's why she should get it, and then person number 2 could get it because their Aunt Dottie, who was a big influence in their life, had would just loved Eeyore and everything else, and so as a commemoration to her, they're going to get an Eeyore. Now that means something to them. Everyone else is going to see Eeyore and think, oh, it's Eeyore, and that's another reason why. One of the cool things is. There's a really cool saying by Sailor Jerry saying, no one is asking you. If you don't have the courage to, I'm paraphrasing to leave out some of the expletives, but if you're basically what it says is if you're not moved or courageous enough to get one yourself, don't try to make yourself feel better by knocking somebody who does, because tattoos are very personal things. They're actually, a tattoo artist in Florida said that they're one of the most selfish things you can get, because it's all for you and you're the only one that will have it for the rest of your life. You can share it with various people from time to time, but you are the one that consistently owns it.
That's very true.
And it goes everywhere.
That's
jail, the grave, everywhere.
Into infinity and beyond.
Well, yeah, in a metaphorical sense, yes.
Yeah. So, what would you say is probably one of your most challenging aspects of running this Emporium, and about being an artist, a tattoo artist?
Well, ideally, when you first come into the industry, one of the very first questions that they're going to ask you, by the way, when you're considering to be an apprentice, is what. It's almost Masonic in a way, but they ask you a quick question. They're like, they want to know one thing before we go any further. Well, why are you getting into tattooing? If your answer is, oh, well, to make a lot of money, you've already ended the conversation, because the thing that the real reason you're supposed to come into it is anything to do with tattooing, but not the money. The money's the last thing you really emphasize. It should be the last thing that you're really about. Although the catch-22 is, you are in business, and as a business, you are out to make money. So you do need to make a certain amount of money.
Sure.
So then there becomes pretty much every business owner and even staff's viewpoint on like what kind of money should they be making and why. There's a lot of people that make a lot of money. Like if you go downtown, for example, our price differences are pretty extreme. But but you also look at who they're catering to and why they're being sought out. I mean, they're being sought out as, if I'm going to find the most well-known place in town, where am I going to go? Well, you're going to go right downtown. You're going to see them. These must be the best people around. So of course you're going to pay for your perception of confidence and your perception of your belief that the talent level is going to be so good, and it is. A lot of it is really good, but their prices are going to definitely reflect that. And so because they believe they should be compensated for having to live up to that role, they should be compensated for that, and no one's to say they're right or wrong. I'm certainly not, and I believe in my belief. myself individually, I like to have a business, but my philosophy has always been one of the reasons I'm on the outskirts of town is because I didn't want to have to really chase the chase the Joneses or keep up to the Joneses or be in a rat race. I look at it like as long as I have enough to pay my bills, get a little further ahead than I was last month, then as far as I'm concerned, that's success. And it's kind of like that Porter Wagner song. I got a satisfied mind.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, tell me about some of the changes you've seen in the industry over the last 20 years.
That's a good perception because my other body piercer here has been doing this about as long as I have, and he's seen a lot of these too. Initially, if you look at the history, depends on how far you want to go back, but when I was coming into the industry, for example, you had a generation where a lot of sailors were really primarily a lot of the tattoo artists and carny people, on the side. They did them too, but eventually there was a period in the I guess around the 60s and 70s and into the 80s where it was primarily run by a lot of bikers and biker chapters and things like that. And there is the perception that, oh, it's a biker shop and everything else, which there's nothing wrong with at all. But that's a different vibe on, like, right when I started coming into the industry, the transition was being made because you had a lot of art school graduates who were coming out, and that never really had been the emphasis before. There was good flash, it was artistic, but that wasn't really, it was meant to be colorful, something to catch your eye and something neat, and it was more about the idea and the design, but it wasn't so much the artistic diversity that you see that people just expect is there now. Like, that was never expected. It was sought out in the early days, and it was actually criticized by a lot of the older, more traditional tattoo artists who did more simpler, bolder work with bolder color and bolder practices. Um, and so a lot of the art type people that came out were applying artistic designs and things that they were learning through art school, using this as a medium to do it. And once that really took hold, it really started changing, not just, well, it changed the industry because it changed the perception of what was possible to get. And therefore, if the diversity of what you could get was a lot broader, then so was the appeal to the people that you're going to reach. And once that began to expand and really just sort of like was a self-multiplying agent with itself. And the more it consumed, the more it wanted, and the more it wanted, the more it was consumed, and it just has expanded to what you see today.
Sure. So people's perception about tattoos has changed drastically over the last years.
Sure. 20 years ago, if you would have walked into a tattoo shop, for example, you walk in and you would have said, oh, all right, so you're going to look at some flash on the wall, you're going to pick one out, and this guy might do it, he might not do it. Probably a lot of tribal, a lot of maybe a rose with a banner. That's nice. Maybe a dagger, some kind of Tasmanian devil doing God knows what, that's fine, and that's about what you were looking for. And you weren't, but that's really all you expected. And really, you were lucky if the tattoo artist decided at the time that you were worth his time to entertain. He may or may not do it for you. He may, and if he did, give him a good attitude through it, and you might have a good experience. But that was what it was. So nowadays, if you walk in, the expectation of a typical consumer that is wishing to be a client in a tattoo shop, you're coming in expecting to see, now because of media productions, like different shows that are on TV that you can see, it's really I think Miami Ink opened the door for that a lot. There's a lot of goods and bads because the perception is that tattoo shops must be just like the one they see. That's absolutely not true. But at the same time, what it did do was it brought Mr. and Mrs. America from their home and from the comfort of their couch into a tattoo establishment without having to say they physically went there. And once they saw what was kind of going on behind the scenes a little bit, they realized there was actually a lot more to it than just coming in and having some guy stick you with a bunch of ink and send you out the door. Actually, there's a lot of things that go into it. When people understood what was going into it, they began to realize that there are also people have specific talents that they have, or they have vibes that they like, and they realize that actually it's more of a personality thing as well as the artistic thing, and they have the right to expect that you can blend a personality and artistic ability. And then you also realize that your artistic expectations are a lot broader, and you just automatically assume that it can be done, because if it's on paper and I see it, it must be able to be done. And everybody believes that every artist can do absolutely everything, which
Right.
a lot of times we have to correct them on and say, well, an honest artist is going to tell you they can or can't do something, and they'll either tell you what they can do comfortably. Yes, I can do it. Or they'll probably, in my case, like I refer them to people I know in the community that do a really good job with that. It's like if you're going to pay money to get a tattoo, if it's something I know that I'm not really confident doing, I'd rather send you to somebody that's going to do a competent job, and hopefully the favor will be returned. But I don't do it for that reason. I do it for the integrity of the industry that we're in.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great explanation.
Mhm.
We do have a viewer, Aaron Donick, who has said, Tom, I'm coming for you. My first tattoo needs to be curated by you. So that's going to be.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
We've already made a fan.
Oh, well, I appreciate those kind words.
And she's a great friend of mine. She's awesome. That'll be. I want to be here when that happens. By the way,
which I encourage. By the way, I have to. This is something that really needs to be emphasized. A lot of shops are funny about people. I actually enjoy someone bringing either someone or something along. Like my receptionist, whenever she's getting a tattoo, a lot of times she brings a blanket. She brings a couple different comfort items, and she's got her whole little. She's got her whole little mantra that she does, and that's it. That's it. But I encourage you to bring other people, because one of the things I'll tell you about, if you're thinking about getting a tattoo, or even if you've only got a couple, what makes the experience a lot better is your mindset is, believe it or not, 80% of how the tattoo experience is going to go. So if you are comfortable and you have someone that's going to put you at ease and make you feel comfortable and laugh and just keep your mind off it or whatever, or listen to certain music you like, I encourage you to do it. I really strive for a client to make themselves as comfortable as possible, because after all, it's a physical experience that you are going through. I'm applying it to you, and I go through my own fatigue, but nothing like what you're going to go through.
Sure. So what's the average time that it takes to do that someone usually is in your chair per sitting? I know.
Well, everyone, right.
Tattoos can take a number of sittings before they.
Well, if they're big, the perception a lot of people have is that they see, like, for example, a sleeve. We have a lot of people walk in and they want to know, hey, so how much for a sleeve? And then you tell somebody, well, they start around $1,500. And then people go, whoa, because they think it's a $1,500 tattoo. It's like, no, you said a sleeve that goes from your wrist all the way around your forearm, all the way around your arm, and actually gets capped up on your shoulder. That's a lot of work, and it starts at $1,500 because I have no idea what you're going to put in it. Sure. This is just like saying, well, I want a rose. Well, I can show you 200 different variations of a rose, and tell me what you want. Do you want a Picasso rose, or do you want like a Renoir rose? Because believe me, they're totally different things.
So what kind of tattoos really speak to you and say on emotional or spiritual level?
Okay, this is one of the cool things about tattooing, that when you're in this industry, you have an ability, whether you're body piercing or tattooing, they're both specialized industries, and even though it's got kind of like a little Army-Navy rivalry, that's kind of been fun. Both professions are very notable, and they're very they're very precise, and they are very, very sacred of what you do if you're doing it right. And and a lot of people have certain things that when you're tattooing mean different things for you for various reasons. In my case, Now, in my case, I was very spiritual in Colorado, and I got into a lot of things. And one of the things that I found is if I've found tattoos that have to do with someone who's either passing away or just experienced a really traumatic loss like that, I usually have a like a Red Cross sympathy for that, where I'm like, well, I really try to help that person out. And I've been known to even just give tattoos away in those situations, or believe it or not, people that are overcoming some sort of like an addiction, for example, and there's. And I don't mean just anybody that comes and says that they are. I mean people that are really genuinely trying, because those people are really going through a lot to try to reverse something that's a really, really strong influence. And the fact that a tattoo can help give them either um, ease in that process, or give them something stable to cling to, maybe even, or reward them in some way, I think it's a very sacred thing. And things like that I really enjoy doing. I just did a tattoo on a girl the other day that was like that. She actually had been in a motorcycle accident, but also had some scars, and she thought that they were, and I know she felt like everyone looks at her all the time or whatever. And I was able to put a watercolor piece all over her that really made it look like you couldn't even see the majority of that. And it just, the emotional reaction she had was really special.
Oh,
things like that. That's why I
do it. I can certainly see it.
Yeah.
This is why it's art.
Yes.
Art does this.
Yes. Art is emotion.
It is emotion. So I would like to. So what's maybe one of the strangest tattoos you've ever done?
Strangest tattoo I've ever done. Well, I've done some pretty strange ones. Uh, I
We can
can't
talk
say.
about
I
here.
can't say. Yeah. I guess. I guess. One of the strange ones that I got was. Well, I guess I can't tell him about Yogi Bear, but I will tell him that. Okay, I will say that there was a girl. And contrary to what a lot of people believe, tattoos can be tattooed pretty much anywhere in the body. Um, girls tend to enjoy like to hide things that a bikini can hide. Just say. So in that particular area of skin, um, there a lot of girls about maybe 10 years ago this kind of dropped off, but a lot of girls or women, and you'll probably run into them, believe it or not, decided it was funny to get a little lawnmower man just walking along and just mowing the yard. And I'll just let your mind wander as to why that would be humorous or amusing to them, but there's a lot of those, and so you do a lot of those, and those are some of the ones I could probably talk about that were
Those are the ones you
strange.
really kind of dig into the backstory and say, okay, what's
Yeah.
behind this?
Well, you'll generally hear the backstories. That's the thing.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
We hear stories that are pretty interesting.
So what's been one? What's been one that you've done that you was like, that was it. It was like this is probably one of the best pieces of work I've done.
Well, let's see. I did a. Well, I would probably think that one of the best, because I really get exhilarated when I get to do cover ups or revamps or repair work. It's something I really get a really challenge and a good charge out of. And um, I think the girl that just came in the other day, for example, that just got all those marks covered up to the point where you can't see them. Uh, that is probably one of the most rewarding ones, because that's like, I know how much that's going to mean to her, how much that's going to change her experience in life, even, and just the fact that you could really pull it off and make it look as good as she wanted it to look with the pictures and references that she brought, which is no small challenge. And dealing with what her skin conditions were to be able to achieve that, so that it would accomplish what she wanted it to do. Just to know that it was able to be accomplished is very rewarding, because it takes a lot of effort, a lot of skill to do. And there's a lot of times a lot of tattoo artists won't take on things like that, because it's just either they don't feel it, or it's just they don't believe their skill set lends itself to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So do you have a process that you use, or that you kind of find yourself using to help people decide what they want to? Those people come in and says, "I want a tattoo. I don't know what or how or."
Yes.
And do you kind of have a process of helping them get through that?
Yes. Basically, what I like to do is I like to get I like to let them see me do this. I'll grab a blank white piece of paper, put it down with a pencil or a pen. I'll sit down with them and just talk to them for a while, and just go, all right, well, why are you getting a tattoo? What's made you feel that you need to get a tattoo? Well, blah blah blah, and they usually start talking about something that kind of narrows it down, and then you go, all right, so now we know why you're getting it. I was like, well, how long have you been wanting to get it? And then you do basically, I took journalism when I was in high school, so you do the pyramid of journalism, and just get down to what it is and get to a refined area, and it really narrows it down for you. And then you can kind of start going, all right, well, so then about this and about this and about this. Well, what is something that really stands out about that? What is something that, and then you really get them to tell you, because once they can visualize what it is that's special about why it is that they're getting the tattoo and why they've been driven there to come today, now you already know, you've already kind of like put all the lenses together, and now it's putting together a really good picture. And then when they finally tell you what things are notable things that they remember is what they can see, that's probably what's going to make a pretty good tattoo for them,
Mhm. Sure.
or
So
something that represents that.
yeah. So do you consider yourself having a style?
A lot of people ask me that. A lot of people have a common question. They're like, so what do you do best? What's your favorite style? And I'm like, well,
Do tattoos have styles?
yes, they
Okay.
do have styles. They have very specific styles. They have some that merge into each other. Mine is it tends to be literally that term where it's like, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I kind of like that expression a lot, because it really says, because because my style is to just wait and see what it is that's motivating this person to get this tattoo and what the tattoo is, and then adapting to being able to get the design to reflect what they want. And that's my style. Is just trying to get something that's really going. It could be. Sometimes it can be something that's very neo-traditional, which I enjoy doing. It could be like pinup-y, which I love to do. It could be sports logo, like something that's very graphic, like a sports logo or something, which I really love doing. But and then sometimes they're artistic concepts that are just kind of out there. They're just like, well, I just want to blend something with butterflies, the color purple, my Aunt Rosalita's meatloaf, and I really loved school. And you're like,
Okay.
all right. And so, but believe it or not, if you jot them down, you can kind of swirl them together. And believe it or not, you can find things that might actually, because traditional tattooing does have symbols for different things. And so if what they're saying is, you know, good friendship or some of the memories that you're seeing, you could pop up something to do with good friendship, a heart for love, for example, maybe a banner or maybe a ribbon to commemorate someone who had breast cancer or maybe died of, Asperger's or whatever, and then all of a sudden that kind of loops those two or three things together. And yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly what I'm feeling. And that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, oh, well, then wonderful, you know? And a lot of times, believe it or not, I use I use the threshold of believability with people. Sometimes I go, well, if you had a tattoo, and I said, point to your tattoo. And a lot of times they'll put their hand like in their mind, like if they've seen themselves with a tattoo, they've already kind of imagined where it's going to be. So they're like, well, they're starting to reach for where they say. Then so they go, okay. And then a lot of times I go, well, what's it up? And you're not, and they're not expecting to be asked that. And they're like, well, it's like, no, you saw it for a second. What did you see? What was something you saw? And that is a good way of really tapping into their subconscious to find it.
Digging into those visual
Yes.
pieces of the mind. I've got so many great questions. I don't even know where to even really go here.
Sure. Anyhow.
So it's kind of same with that style kind of a question. I know that I'm a painter.
Right.
I've painted for several years, and I know there's artists that really influence me and that I really gravitate towards. Joan Mitchell, Stephen Gorn,
Right.
Franz Klein. Just those guys. Just like those, I just dig what they do.
Yes.
Are there tattoo artists that you kind of feel like have influenced you, or that you lean into for inspiration?
Yes, actually, and so half of them are people that people would totally go, oh, I know who that is, and then half of them are people that they've never heard of in their life. One of them is there's a guy named CJ who is he's well known for tattooing in Manhattan at like Rising Dragon and a couple other locations like that on the Lower East Side. His name's CJ. He tattoos in Florida. I actually introduced he and his wife together, and they're both, they have a wonderful working relationship as well. But yeah, CJ was really wonderful. He actually was the one that did this portrait of Johnny Cash. He actually did a really excellent portrait of Johnny Cash on my leg.
Oh wow!
That's right there. If you want to see it, see that?
Oh yeah. Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah, so he's also one of the reasons I pretty much always answer people always say, hey, do you do portraits? And I'm like, nope, because I worked next to him a few times in my career. I was lucky enough to do that. And when he does do portrait work, it's exquisite portrait work, and so there's no way you would ever think to do portrait work next to him, because you're like, well, why would you? Why would you just go to him? So anyway, but he also does he does a very, very broad spectrum of art. He's actually a very famous spray paint tagger.
Okay.
He's a very, 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 very good at what he does, and he does like murals, beautiful murals.
See that going together. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's his artistic blend, and he goes that way. So that kind of culture really influences him, for example. So that's an influence. And then you have there was another woman I worked with named Lisa Schmolt down in Florida. She's eccentric as well, but she's in a good way, Lisa. But anyway, but she was very much when I was coming into my career, very much into like Proud Fairies, things like that, like very very Fantasia fantasy type artwork, and very beautiful blends of color and very very just beautiful blendings of color, and so you got to learn some really good blends from her. Then there was another tattoo artist named Wayne Gorenzo who I worked with briefly, unfortunately, but he came up very traditional in the sense of very old school methods of application design, so very 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 strong use of black, and also another artist named Flash out in Colorado Springs really helped me come along with this as well. The influence of the constant reminder that black is the structure that it's really going to hold everything together, and it's a these all styles are good, but it really has got to be held together, and that's why traditional people have always done it that way. And then my brother, I can't leave out my brother, because my brother has blended with all these wonderful different artists as well across the country. He's been to many conventions and everything, and he's a very social artist. He knows a lot of people, and fortunately, we try to sync out the personalities that are positive, because if you can reach the positive attitudes in there, you tend to be able to share ideas. There are a lot of people that also don't believe in sharing their ideas at all. So it just when you come across the good ones that are willing to share information, it's very wonderful. And I would say that Nate Beavers is another one that people would have heard of, that I like his work. And an artist named Scott Toy, Colorado. But anyway, that's a list. You could go on for
Wow, wow, yeah, and that's again that flows right back to being an artist. You all learn from each other. It's a ongoing.
hmm
It's an ongoing learning.
Yeah. Oh, I do have to say that ever since I was I do have to say one other guy, Patrick Nagel, to like ink artists or whatever. Patrick Nagel, the artist from the 80s that did the Rio cover for Duran Duran, and did a lot of the woman with the black hair
Okay.
and the white face and everything.
Yeah.
That was my first artistic influence. I absolutely loved. I have to throw that
Excellent.
in. I won't interrupt you anymore.
No. Please do. You're. So, we seeing? Do you see a lot of differences in tattoos in geographic areas? Like
Yes.
Does Nashville have a vibe? Their own like tattoo vibe going on?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, and it's different than it was 20. I was here in 2004 when I lived in Nolensville, and I believe that the tattoo vibe does have a difference, and I'll tell you what it is. And well, I'll get to that in just a second. Geographically, you tend to notice that there are different artistic influences that are going on in those areas for various reasons. There's certain styles that maybe it's just become popular in this area that maybe down in New Orleans in that area there's this really cool vibe that people are going into. And then if you go out like in Colorado and into like the west, and you go over towards like Seattle and maybe San Francisco, maybe that far down south, but like for example in that northwestern region, there's a lot of influence that's very progressive art, and it's got its own style, and they're all different. And you could go down to Florida, and they have a little bit of a Daytona feel sometimes, but there's a lot of excellent artists that have been coming down from other areas that are bringing really specialized things to that area. So it's kind of going away from your run of the mill ho hum tattoo arting. Not that it ever was really ho hum, but compared to what it is now in certain areas, yes, you can find the buyer. However, you also know that there are areas you could go to in Florida that there's a lot of areas you could go to that really isn't there. So you have to be vigilant on what you're going into while looking at portfolios. That's why that's so important. But yeah, and then up in New York, of course, there's amazing people up in New York.
Yeah. Seems like again, I'm not a big tattoo. I mean, I've know so little. I know enough to just be dangerous. I seem to be seeing a lot more of just black ink type of artwork being done nowadays.
Mhm.
More like I would say like Hawaiian style henna type tattoo
Right.
designs, or the flourishes
Right.
and stuff. And so I didn't know if that's like that kind of a
Yes.
just a vibe thing or a
Yeah, typically, what I've seen, anyway, my experience has been that it's usually men in their early 30s and beyond and older typically tend to be the ones that want those. And obviously, early on, there were a lot of people that loved the tattoo that The Rock had, or has. And, whoa, I want The Rock's tattoo. And what a lot of people don't get is that with Samoan art, which is actually one of the oldest forms of tattooing, um, in the South Pacific and things like that, those Polynesian designs that they're wearing actually are like they're like family trees for them. It tells specific events that specific generations experienced or went through that was notable about that generation, and it's been added to yours so that it tells something about you and how this is the story of the people that were around you, and that's why it blends for them, and that's why everyone's is different. Now, um, that being said, there are also a lot of symbols that typically it's almost like it's got its own alphabet
Yeah,
of characters.
sure.
So in essence, it's more like hieroglyphics. I'll say South Pacific hieroglyphics is a very good way of putting it. So it depends on what you want to like. If you're putting a shark, there's a design that's called a shark tooth. For example, a shark teeth, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe, for example, that represents like a very difficult time or like an injury that you sustained, that you've overcome, or something that really was an inflict on your life that was something that you had to overcome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then there's like the triangles of different, those mean certain things. There's like the shapes that look almost like overlap diamonds, they mean something. There's curves that are waves of the ocean, maybe they look at sailors, and they all mean different things. So a lot of times you can actually say, well, what kind of things are you going through, like why are you wanting to get this? And so, I just, you can find out elements that they think, and then you can find the elements that translate to that. And sometimes you can design their tattoos, if they're that type, based on like the different symbols that mean those specific things.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Love it. I like to learn more about all of that as well.
Yeah, and I by no means claim to know it all. Let me throw that out there, because some tattoo artists are like, this guy doesn't know a damn thing. But
Well, we got a few minutes here left. I'd like to walk around and just kind of
Sure.
look at the Emporium just a little bit. And this,
sure,
I don't know if you call it a shop or
I call it, yeah,
Studio.
people call it shops, studios,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't call it a parlor, but you call it a shop or a studio. Parlor, we're getting away from that idea. We don't have a clubhouse out back right
Sure.
now.
Well, that's what we're in.
Okay,
Kind of-
sure.
Kind of shows what we got. I mean,
Okay.
First off, some of the
Well,
memorabilia that's on the walls. It's a
yeah, well, yeah, we can start
it's a
off with
colorful
that.
place to be.
Yeah, they tend to they tend to reflect different attitudes and interests that your artists or people that work there have. I'm real big into like Fallout, and huge Johnny Cash fan, and love Pulp Fiction, and a big Florida Gator fan because I'm from Florida. And so anyway, we've got that, and then I'm really also into pinups, and so you can see a wide range of pinups and things, and I'm into rockabilly and psychobilly a lot, so that's why you. And then the Elvis statue is actually on loan from my son, actually, from the Johnny Elvis estate, because he actually was given that as a gift. My son's name was Johnny Elvis. His mother was a big Elvis fan. I'm actually a Johnny Cash fan. And so his name is a hyphenated name, which is Johnny Elvis. And so which, by the way, I will say I was nice enough to be able to get I was lucky enough to get a Coca-Cola bottle
there
from
you
them.
go. That's cool.
Yeah. I wrote to the Elvis estate to ask if I could have permission, because Coca-Cola was reluctant at first because it said Elvis, but then they sent me two. So I think after I wrote the Elvis people, maybe they said, yeah. But anyway, yeah. So this is an example of what I like to do. I like for your tattoo to be a positive experience. I like it to be something that is very, very good. I have a real odd eclectic variety of music that
I
I
was
play.
listening to music while we were waiting. I was like, you definitely have like eclectic
Yeah.
taste in music.
Yeah, it's basically stuff I've liked all my life, and I just sort of put it all together in a playlist, and I just mix it all together, because you never know who you're tattooing, and someone will find a couple songs like, oh, I can get down to that, and it's just something to keep their mind off the tattoo.
Okay. So are there different inks that you would use for different tattoos?
Yes.
Or is there a specific like type of ink that you prefer using?
Yeah, the best. Well, there are. I use very reputable inks. I use there's brands called like Eternal, and certain colors in Starbright, certain colors in Tens, for example. These are like some of the newer ink companies that are around that weren't really around, and back in the day, you pretty much had a very few selection choices. But these are actually companies that have really come along, that have really, and when people say, well, the ink just seems so much more colorful these days, it's like, well, it is, because you have companies that now do nothing but create this ink and tweak pigments to make it the most vibrant they can and most consistent they can, so that you will buy their ink and therefore charge more money, and therefore they'll make a pretty good profit as well. But yes, there are. And then a lot of these little starter kits that you get, for example, have these little Chinese ink bottles that are really awful, and when you put it in you'll definitely see what the difference is.
Cool. So I'm going to kind of
Sure.
around really quickly, if you don't mind.
Sure.
With all the colors.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use a specific type of equipment?
Yes.
I don't know if you call them guns or what you would call them.
No, we call them tattoo machines.
Tattoo machines.
Yeah, this is one by a company called Paco Rollins. There's all kinds of different companies that do these, but that manufacture these. But anyway, I use a spring machine. There's basically two types of machines that you can do. Well, three, I guess. You can use these traditional machines that run with coils that alternate current and throw the spring, therefore moving the needle bar. Some recently have started using the tattoo pens that are more like basically a glorified rotary machine that really has got a device in it that's going to consistently move this in a circular motion. It's going to move the bar up and down at a very, very rapid circular rate. And of course you can adjust it. But and then some people even I've heard use air-powered machines, but that never really took off because you have to have a really big compressor and all that kind of stuff. And I think it was very hard to find people that would actually supply you with that type of thing. Yeah, no, it was actually good because it was absolutely quiet. You didn't even use it, or you didn't even hear it. And believe it or not, it's the noise a lot of times. It's like going to the dentist and hearing them fire up a drill or something like that. Just the noise of it already, implies its own, primitive thoughts and fears, But yeah, this is the reception area, and this is the waiting area that we have. It's just an area. A lot of times we have Netflix and things like that, so you can entertain yourselves. And we have like portfolios and idea books that you can flip through. And we have obviously the traditional flash rack that a lot of shops basically you're expected to carry, but hardly anybody uses.
Really?
But you have to have them, because otherwise you look like you're not a you're not a very wise shop. You look like you're not a genuine tattoo shop. It's like they're kind of like, what they're like. They're like the yellow taxi cabs in New York. New York doesn't use those cabs, but in every movie you see, they always have them.
That's right.
That's a flash rack.
They're part of the flavor of the city.
Right. A flash rack's a yellow cab.
What was the stores used to be in the malls all the time that had all the poster racks? You went through the posters. Oh,
well, I know in Florida we had one called the Infinite Mushroom, and that was wonderful. You got to go in, had all the posters and stuff you flipped through, and had some other odd things. But
it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah. Hey, there's our body piercer and our apprentice. She's trying to sneak out. That's Brandy. Yeah, that's Brandon. He's our
community arts in Bellevue.
Yeah. He's actually from Shreveport. We're lucky enough to have him.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Welcome to Nash Vegas.
With the Gators. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you?
She's a local. She's a real local.
Yeah.
She's a real local. Not a local who's been here for 5 years and said so.
Right. Right. And then of course Carolyn, she's our receptionist. She's actually not just an employee, she's a client.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
A very prominent client.
Yeah, she's got tattoos all over, all down her legs.
Can I get some close-ups?
Of course.
Yeah, you'd think she was a magazine model or something with all the stuff she's got.
Oh my goodness. They're beautiful.
Yes, he does amazing work. Very amazing work.
Yeah.
There's other places, but
yeah.
Yes.
well, if I
Okay.
knew I was gonna be on camera, I would have dyed my hair a different color.
With all the lights, it's always a
Yeah,
different
it's
color.
Oh,
Yeah. And then and then this is actually an art area that we have back here. This is where we pretty much we do a lot of production back here. We have we have different different projects we need to draw or that have been drawn. We have different file areas that we keep them and stuff. And this is in light tables and things. Anything we need to produce an image and things. And then we.
So when you say produce an image for a tattoo, like
Yeah.
someone wants.
This is where we go right from.
Concepts.
Yeah, this is what I want. I want something like this. So we go, all right, and then we come back here. We can either hand draw it, or a lot of times people will bring. The age of the cell phone is amazing, where people just bring stuff in nowadays. They just bring in what they want. And by the way, one of the things, please, if we could get across one thought too, it's it's a little people don't understand the etiquette breach that they do when they walk in. It's a faux pas, really. You come in, you go, hey, see this guy's sleeve? I want that tattoo. And you're like, yeah, we see that was customized for that person, with the understanding that they were the only ones with it. And even though people may see what it looks like, they didn't do that they didn't get the picture taken with the expectation that everyone would want their tattoo. So sometimes you have to understand that tattoo artists are going to want to change it a little bit, and this is why their hesitation is to just go, sure, give me what you got, give me that guy's tattoo. We don't really want to do that. We understand that you love the idea that you see, and we can try to give you something that's close to what you're seeing. It's like, I see what you're going for, so we could give you something close to that. But a lot of artists, myself included, we really try to frown upon just actually doing somebody else's actual tattoo.
Well, I know you like Matisse, but you can't have that painting.
Correct. And I've actually had somebody bring me a Van Gogh and they wanted a Van Gogh painting, and that's happened more than once where they bring you like an artist, a picture from like a master. I'm like, you realize it was an artistic master, right? That was a masterpiece. They call that a masterpiece. I'm not. They're not going to remember me in 300 years.
Something tells me they might, Tom.
Maybe.
So they might.
Yeah.
Well, guys, Tom, I guess we can wind this up this evening. We're at 8 o'clock. I can't hardly believe that. That went by super fast.
Yeah.
I think we would sit here and talk for a lot longer about all this.
Oh, we certainly could.
There's a lot more to be told to this story, but we really do appreciate you spending your evening with us tonight and talking to us about all this this new world of tattoos. And I'm actually going to here we go again with me trying to change cameras, and I don't know what I'm doing. And we're going to do it this way, and I'm going to do that, and then we're going to flip around here, and I'm going to do front, and we're going to do that. And hopefully, it all goes well. And it looks like it did.
Hey.
Go back around this way. So, we need you in here. There we are.
Yay.
There we go. So, folks, thank you for being with us tonight. We're here at the Bellevue Tattoo Emporium with Tom Chisholm, and we hope that you will all come out and visit Tom and check this out. Check this place out. It's really cool. And so we thank you for being with us, and join us again next Thursday night from Live from the View, 7 p.m. And also remember about the auditions for Their Stars Still Shine, which is Sunday, 3 to 5 at Bellevue Performing Arts. I think that's all we've got for tonight. And thank you.